In sum total, he presented a request for the approval of 15 highway projects, roads and bridges, all of which were approved. I'll just give you maybe a mention of 3 or 4 of those projects that he got approval for. One is the award of the contract for the construction of phase 2 of Ikot Epene border Aba to Owerri dualization road project. And this is at the cost of 40 billion 157 million naira, and it's due for completion in 30 months. Another project for which he got approval is the construction of the Offa bypass road phase 2 in Offa local government area of Kwara State. This project is for 4 billion 335 million naira and is due for completion in 12 months. Another of his projects is the rehabilitation of the Alesi. This is the revised estimated cost of the rehabilitation of the Alesi Ugep road section in Cross River State. And the initial cost was 11.221 billion naira. The cost has now gone up to 14.740 with additional completion period of 6 months. The other roads, spread across 11 other roads spread across, the various geopolitical regions of the country. So the briefing with the ministers will proceed in the order in which they came into communications. Professor Pantami. Can you move?
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, good afternoon to all of you. And I also pray may the peace, mercy, and blessings of Almighty be upon you. Today at the Federal Executive Council, I have presented 2 memos. However, the second memo is just council note about the National Council on Communications and Digital Economy, which took place in December 2021 here in Abuja, just for council noting. While the first memo presented at the Federal Executive Council, which is going to be the one to speak on now, is for the Nigerian Communications Commission for the deployment of a revenue assurance solution, that is RAS. This project has been ongoing since on 27 June 2016, almost 6 years now. And the process has been a very long one for the Commission. And the wisdom behind the deployment of this revenue assurance solution is to block leakages in the telecommunications industry, particularly as it applies to annual operating levy. The administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the revenue generating sectors to enhance and improve on revenue generation. As part of the compliance to these directives, the Nigerian Communications Commission has been automating so many processes, deploying technologies to ensure that all leakages are being blocked, and at the same time to promote the cybersecurity of our country by making sure that our cyberspace, particularly as it relates to the telecommunications sector. This system, prior to the presentation of the memo today, Nigerian Communications Commission has obtained the IT clearance from the National Information Technology Development Agency, certifying the project. Secondly, they have obtained the security report of clean bill from the Office of the National Security Advisor on it. And thirdly, also, in 2018, they obtained the endorsement from the Minister of Finance then. And fourthly, they also obtained the certificate from ICRC, that is Infrastructure Concession and Regulatory Commission. And finally, they have also obtained the certificate of no objection from the Bureau of Public Procurement. So the wisdom behind deploying this technology is just to enhance government revenue and at the same time to ensure that leakages are being blocked. There was a delay in the process because an issue came up that has to do with litigation. The two parties involved, the two genuine parties involved, finally agreed to settle the matter out of court. And the Federal High Court transmitted a letter to NCC that the issue has been settled out of court, and the Commission was permitted by the Federal High Court to proceed with the process and complete it. So, in summary, this is an attempt to enhance revenue generation that will go into education, health, infrastructure, and many more. Thank you very much.
Today in the Federal Executive Council meeting, I presented one memo, and that's in respect of the contract for the completion of the road called Mpape to Galui to Shere Road within the Federal Capital Territory in Buhari, around Buhari Area Council. And that road is to be constructed by Messrs. Vipan Global Investment Limited at a total cost of 5,454,536,230 Naira 67 kobo only. We expect that that road will be completed within 18 months. That road has been under construction for some time. And then when we realized that the contractor handling the project could not perform, the contract was terminated, and we have reissued it to this new contractor. And it is intended to open up the road leading to the Kayi Sheri resettlement site, which is about 64% completed. And this road, when done, is going to allow us to move settlements within phase in two phases. The first phase will be to move settlements within phase 2 of the city that are meant to go there, and these ones are the 7 communities of Utako, Maje, Mabushi, Jabi Samuel, Jabi Yakubu, and Panda, and then Zilu. These are all settlements within phase 4. Development has already encompassed them. So this is also in line with the administration's policy of working on infrastructure, and opening up towns and communities so that the city proper would be decongested. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The first memo we presented today has to do with the confirmation of ratification of Customs Mutual Administrative Assistance Agreement between South Africa and Nigeria. And the purpose for us is for the customs law in the respective territories to be properly observed, to prevent and also enhance investigation and to combat customs offenses, and to afford each country mutual assistance in cases concerning the delivery of documents regarding the application of customs laws in our two countries. The importance for this for us is cooperation between Nigeria and South Africa, as it has become even more important now with the coming into effect of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. It will also help to increase trade relations between the two countries and facilitate exchange of information, as well as strengthen our binational cooperation. The second memo we presented to Council today has to do with a request for approval of the 2022 appropriation amendment. If you recall, when the President signed the 2022 appropriation into law on the 31st of December, he had raised some concerns that he had in some of the provisions in the budget, and had indicated that he will be submitting an amendment proposal to the National Assembly for them to effect improvements on what has been done to the budget. So today Council took that amendment proposal, and I just want to report that part of the request that Council has approved today is for the National Assembly to repeal clauses 10 and 11. So clause 10 is referring to a provision that has been made that will enable the EFCC and the NFIU be able to take 10% of whatever collections that they recover. We're asking for that to be repealed because this is in direct contrast to the acts of these two agencies, and also it is in contravention with the Fiscal Responsibility Act and the Finance Act 2021. Clause number 11, on the other hand, is a provision that has been made that says that the Nigerian embassies and missions are now authorized by this Appropriation Act to expend funds allocated to them under capital components without the need to seek approval of the Federal Minister of Foreign Affairs. This again, in our view, and Council agreed, is inconsistent with financial regulations and also inconsistent with the provisions of the public procurement. And so we're asking for those to be repealed. So Council also approved that some of the changes that were made in the Appropriation Act, totaling 103 billion naira, should be restored. And examples of this are 22 billion that was provided for sinking fund to mature bonds that will be ready for payment in 2022 in the Nigerian domestic market, and also 12 billion for counterpart funding that is required for the various rail projects, and 489 million to be adjusted also in the budget of the Ministry of Transport, Secretary of the Government of the Federation, and the Head of Service. These are projects that are provided in these ministries that are completely unrelated to their mandate, so implementation will be a problem. And also 5 billion to be restored for non-regular allowances of the Nigerian Navy, 15 billion to be restored for the regular allowances of the police formations and police commands, and several others that the Council looked at in detail. So there's a detailed schedule of this 103 billion that we're going to be, that Mr. President will be formally conveying to the National Assembly to restore the adjustments that are made. We also presented to Council today a request for Council's consideration to make additional funding provisions to enable us to meet incremental fuel subsidy request in the 2022 budget. You recall that in the 2022 budget as appropriated, we had made a provision of 443 billion for fuel subsidy for January to June. Having taken into account the current realities, increased hardship in the population, heightened inflation, and also that the measures that needed to be taken to enable a smoother exit of the fuel subsidy are not yet in place, it was agreed by Council that it is desirable to exit fuel subsidy. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC, has presented to the Ministry a request for 3 trillion naira as fuel subsidy for 2022. And what this means is that we have to make an incremental provision of 2.557 trillion naira to be able to meet the subsidy requirement, which is averaging about 270 billion naira per month. In 2021, the actual under recovery that has been that has been charged to the Federation was 1.2 trillion, which means an average of 100 billion per month. But in 2022, because of the increased prices of crude oil price per barrel in the global market, now at $80 per barrel, and also because NNPC's assessment is that the country is consuming 65.7 million liters per day, that will end up with incremental cost of 3 trillion in 2022. So this has been considered by Council, and we've also been asked to approach the National Assembly for an amendment to the fiscal framework as well as the budget, to also further discuss with NNPC on how to make provisions for this and also how to rationalize this expenditure. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, on the issue of fuel subsidy, the PIA had required that all petroleum products should be deregulated within 6 months of signing the PIA into law. And this 6 months would have meant from August to February. But when we're doing the budget, we stretched that to June. So it means technically that from September, there will be no fuel subsidy. But having to step back and take into account the realities of today, what it means is we have to go back and amend the PIA, so the Minister of Petroleum Resources will be leading on that. They had indicated that they will be asking for amendment to extend it to 18 months from 6 months. And then it means we can now also amend the budget. So the two processes will go side by side. In the case of the budget, we're looking at extending to December in the first instance, because this budget year is January to December. And also we're going to engage NNPC to further interrogate the request that they presented, with a view of trying to see how we can scale it down so that the country is not incurring 3 trillion for subsidy. We agree with the view of the governors that there's a need to scale down on the size. So even as government is not immediately removing the fuel subsidy, we have to make sure that what the nation is incurring is efficient and that it is real cost that has been consumed by the country. How we fund it will be, so we hope to reduce it from that 3 trillion. That is one. Secondly, also, we have been running reconciliations with NNPC. No, the other lady asked a question, how do we fund this? So we hope to reconcile to reduce the cost, but also we have several reconciliations with NNPC, and NNPC itself is owing in some cases government. So we want to be able to settle some of the subsidy costs through this reconciliation process. So when we're done with that, whatever is left that we're not able to apply to what NNPC is owing the Federation will now be increasing the deficit, and that means increased domestic borrowing. But we haven't finished those reconciliations. This is just the second day that this happened, and we're working.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for some questions forwarded to me by my sister Gloria from the channels. Firstly, on the issue of a national identification number and its support to security. This is a very relevant question. However, before I respond to the question specifically, allow me to remind you that obtaining national identification number is a requirement by law. It's mandatory for all citizens and legal residents in Nigeria. Look at the act establishing National Identity Management Commission, that is NIMC Act 2007, under Section 27, that it is a requirement by law. Not only that, there are some services that are not allowed to be performed or to be obtained in Nigeria without having national identification number, like passport, traveling passport, for example, driver's license, government services, including INEC voters cards. All these are the provision of the law. Furthermore, this is the global practice. There is no any responsible country where you will discover that citizens do not have their own identification number. If you go to the US, they have social security number. In the UK, for example, they have national insurance number. Look at a country like India with a population of around 1.3 billion. They have their Aadhaar number. If you go to Pakistan, they have Naira number. So this is the global practice, that citizens must have an identification number that is unique. And government will be able to use the database for national planning, for budget, for security, for economic development, for health, for education. Because without that, then it is difficult to know actually our population in the country. It's difficult to know the age bracket. It's difficult to get your national planning right. So because of this, the national identification number is a requirement by law. And secondly, it's mandatory. And if you look at Section 29 of NIMSI Act, there is even a punishment if one fails to obtain it. So before we discuss about its benefits to SIM registration and others, let us address the legal issue that this is mandatory by our law. And this law has been in existence in Nigeria since 2007. That is almost 15 years now. Secondly, coming to the issue of the effectiveness of SIM and NIN registration, or NIN and SIM registration. As we all know that the priority areas of this administration under President Muhammad Buhari are three. The core areas, number one is security, number two, economic development, and number three, fighting corruption. And that is why you will discover most of the initiatives of the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, that of Nigerian Communications Commission, you will see they are in alignment with these priority areas. When it comes to security, the Constitution of Nigeria, Section 14, subsection 4 under Article B, clearly stated that the priority of government is security and welfare. It is because of this we have been coming up with so many initiatives in order to support our security institutions. Our core mandate is not security. But since we are part and parcel of the administration, whatever we do must be in alignment with the priority areas of the administration. So because of this, the idea of coming up with NIN and SIM, it is not the concept was not ours. But previous administration, because of threat, intimidation, and many more, couldn't implement it. The idea was conceptualized 20 years ago or even more. But because of resistance by criminals, it was not implemented. Don't forget, the time we announced the policy in 2020, February, less than a week, some criminals started threatening my life, even on radio station, BBC, that if I fail to step back from the policy, I am going to be eliminated. It was announced. It was announced. Why? If the policy is not important, why the criminals are intimidated? Why the extremists and the terrorists are intimidated with the policy if it is not important? So they threaten me because they know it will significantly reduce their activities. If and only if our relevant institutions leverage on what we have been doing. I'm coming. Thirdly, on the issue of security, if you want to know whether it has been reduced or no, it is better to obtain the statistics from our security institutions. As I earlier said, our mandate doesn't cover security except cybersecurity, while cybersecurity is a civil cause, not a security cause. And that is why it is being found in ICT faculties globally, not in security institutions. So only what we are doing is to support the security, and they are not under any obligation to disclose to us the success they have been recording with that. What we have done is to sanitize our database, and this has been ongoing. Secondly, when a crime is committed, there is a process of obtaining the record in database. As the minister, I am not empowered by law just to go and ask for database record. The executive vice chairman of NCC and the CEO doesn't have power just to go and access the database. There must be some legal reasons. Some prima facie case must be established against someone that there is need for investigation. If that is done, in Cyber Crime Act 2015, there is a provision of legal intercept and many more under it. What will happen? Security institutions will write to us, for example, either to the ministry or to NCC, in some cases to mobile network operators directly, that we have established this and we need to get access to biodata, this and this and this. Because if there is no high level of suspect, if there is no any prima facie case, then it is going to be abused. Because based on the provision of Constitution, our telephone conversation, our record must be confidential. This is the provision of the Constitution. They must be confidential. So only security institutions have access to it. When they write, there is a requirement. Not any officer can write. A minimum of a deputy director or its equivalent can write a letter. When they write with your justification, NCC will respond immediately with the information required. When you asked the question before I responded, I had a discussion with AV. I said, what was the last time that any security institutions wrote to you requesting for biodata? He said to me, it's more than 6 months now. Can you confirm it?
Yeah, confirm.
More than 6 months. So the issue is we have done our best to improve the database. But it is not our responsibility when a crime is committed and SIM is involved to go out looking for the owner. Is not. Our only work, sanitize the database. When security institutions need our help or our support, they write to us and we provide. You can interview them. Did they ever write to me, even once, requesting for biodata which I have failed to provide? It has never happened to me. So it is not our responsibility. Furthermore, I always commend the effort of our security institutions, looking at the situation they have found themselves. And secondly, they could be able to get certain information without coming to us. In order to make their work much, much easier, Mr. President has approved certain activities that our security institutions can do in order to make their work much, much easier. For example, the lawful intercept, they don't need to go to NCC or MNOs. If they have established a prima facie case, they can go ahead and do it. They have power to do that. Secondly, most of the crimes, based on the report I have received from NCC, most of the crimes committed now by criminals, they don't use their personal SIM. What they usually do, they roadblock highways. They seize the telephones of travelers. They make use of the SIM to commit crime. Or when they kidnap an innocent citizen, they will take away his phone and make a call. When it is investigated, you will discover the number is for the kidnapped, not the kidnapper. So in this situation, what are you going to do? Even in that situation, we have 1,001 ways to support security institutions, but that is not for public. Even if they seize the telephone from its owner, we will be able to trace their location if our support is needed. We will be able to trace their location wherever they are in Nigeria. We can tell you the location precisely within not more than 5 square meters or thereabout. So because of this, what we have been doing is to support them. But given the statistics, what it has done is not our own. It is the mandate of our security institutions, and they are doing the best they can. And definitely, coming from the northeast of Nigeria, I always commend security institutions, and I always commend their effort, because I know how northeast was and what it is today. Because of this, I always commend them. And finally, on the issue of 5G, you may recall that His Excellency, Mr. President Muhammad Buhari, yesterday launched the 5G policy for implementation. On the question on how it will help our security institutions, there are 1,001 ways. 5G is part of fourth industrial revolution. And fourth industrial revolution has so many technological advancements. For example, robotic is part of it, artificial intelligence is part of it, big data analytics is part of it, autonomous vehicle is part of it, quantum computing is part of it, virtual reality is part of it. If you look at all these things, all of them are applicable to security. For example, autonomous vehicle. Our security institution can leverage on 5G with real-time communications and use autonomous vehicles in situations where a human being is not supposed to be exposed because of its danger. Security institutions can use virtual reality. With 5G and virtual reality, one may be able to sit down here and visit any forest in Nigeria and get access to any part of the forest, looking at it virtually in reality without going there physically. With 5G, drones can be operated. You can control it from where you are. You can send it, it will go and perform operation and come back. With 5G, you can manage big data analytics. That is the datafication of society. You can manage big data analytics. You can collect huge amount of data in zettabyte or exabyte or even more than that. Within an hour, you can analyze and you can form your decision on it. The same with artificial intelligence. So if you discover almost all the components of the fourth industrial revolution are applicable to security institutions. And that is why Mr. President has directed them yesterday that they should immediately be proactive and leverage on this technology and handle the security challenges being confronted by Nigeria. And I hope I have answered the question. Thank you very much.
More than she asked. She doesn't have to say this. Thank you very much for your time. And I hope that please, as we have always done, let's stay focused on the big issues of the day. So much has been achieved at FEC today. And we hope that the nation will be appropriately informed. Thank you for your time and attention. We appreciate it. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you. Okay.